Howdy, hi. I'm gonna do a reading. I hope that you are doing well. I hope that this year is treating you well. I hope that despite all odds, you are maintaining yourself well. I know that things are seeming to get crazy for a lot of people. Really hard, really tough, really uncertain. I was like this morning going through this idea of there's always this idea of there being like two choices, ultimately, like between one thing or this other thing. And, I guess it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But there's something in me that swears that that's like not the thing to do, even though that comes so naturally to us. And as I was thinking about it yesterday, oh, it's like right on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of how I was thinking of it though. I want to get into those thoughts from yesterday. Let's get into those matrix thoughts that I was having about the this third perspective, where things can be either this way or that way, but really it's actually seeing things from this other third person perspective. There's something else going on here that we're trying to see. I want to get back to that thought that I had yesterday about these ideas. Oh, geez. Okay, what I'm getting right off the bat, this card came out on top of everything, but I could not take my peripherals off of it. When this card fell out, it literally like stayed right in my line of vision even as I was trying to go through the rest of the cards. So this card is going to be the main card that we're working with. These, I guess it's going to go like this. Interestingly enough. Weird. Okay. This matrix idea. Okay, so there's this. Okay, so when it comes to this matrix idea, there's this idea of an illusion that's being presented as the truth or as the reality, but it's an illusion. It'll come to me. It's like right there. There's a projection that we've accepted as reality that is actually an illusion, but it's coming face up because that's how it's appearing to us. However, what is actually face up, what is actually real, is face down to us. We're not seeing it, but it's because of this shift in perspective that needs to happen, you know. And this is like constantly the story, right, of like self-actualization. Essentially is what does that transition look like for each and every person to truly come into their truest selves. For some people it looks like, you know, taking a trek to some specific sacred space, or for some people it looks like, you know, dressing a certain way and being called by a certain name. For some people it looks like meeting a certain status of a specific type of job title. For some people it's being able to afford a certain type of lifestyle. For some people it's being able to not want to kill yourself all the time. For some people it's you know, just having the best time that you can. For some people it's about being able to kind of enact the best disciplines necessary for efficiency, sufficiency, sustainability. I don't think that anything is inherently right or wrong in that way. I think it's all a matter of perspective. Sorry, my mouth is doing that weird thing where it like goes down, and so my lisp is like really prominent right now. So I'm trying to, sorry, my voice is sounding weird. Okay, so we're talking about this different perspective this way. And that's kind of why everything is laid out the way that it is, why it came that way. Instead of this being like, generally how I read, like I'll do a lot where it's like, this is the past and this is the current, or this is the current and this is the future, or this is the past and this is the future, or this is, one space and time and this is another space and time. What I'm getting from these specifically before even reading them, this is the only card I'm really looking at. I already know what this card is because I saw it on my peripherals as well, but I haven't read them yet. But what I do know just from this card, and still not even fully reading it yet, is that these two are speaking on the same thing from different perspectives. So if there's any sort of oppositional way of them coming across, I'm going to focus on actually trying to pull apart the differences, but in the same way, I'm also going to point out the ways that they're the same, these two cards, and what they are doing. Yeah, they're showing the same thing. These are all showing, these two and these two are showing this same thing from a different perspective. But it's almost the same one specific thing. It's not just different aspects that we're looking at. It's the same thing from different perspectives. I just want to make that clear. So, okay, let me read them. They're almost the opposite right away is what I'm seeing off the bat. Okay, so we have this Page of Cups and this Page of Wands. So they're both pages. They do both relate to each other that way, but this one is headed in one direction. This one is headed in the opposite direction. They're both holding something in their hands, but this one is holding it there in their right hand. This one's holding it in their right hand. This one's holding it in their left hand. Okay, so let's see. I mean, I'm seeing similarities right off the bat where like they're both these like this one's a banana in a like scuba suit, but this like tank over his head like has this feeling of being contained, but it's like with a purpose, like with a very specific purpose. Like it needs to be contained in order for it to do what it needs to do. The same way with this microwave. It's interesting because with the Page of Cups, I'm seeing like this beginning of life, and with Page of Wands, I'm seeing this like end of life almost, but they're both opportunistic. They're both kind of like taking the bull by the horns. And it's almost this idea of like, this is a representation of a lack of confidence in doing so. This is a representation of an acknowledgement and embracing of one's experience in order to lead the way. And the two of them together, it's interesting because, like I said, we're not talking about two different aspects. We're not talking about an insecure aspect as well as a confident aspect gained through experience. We're talking about there being this sort of innocent insecurity that comes with not knowing well and kind of just being in this curious state, like, oh, everything's a curiosity. And so it's like, I don't know. But there's a sort of maturity that comes with that, in opposition to an immaturity that comes with this. I've done this so many times, so I can just rush into it head first. This one is a little more destructive in that way. Where this one, like I said, like this one has this feeling of death, this one has this feeling of new life. But they're both the same thing. So we're not talking about an opposition. We're not talking about them even being two different aspects of the same thing. We're talking about them being like reflections of the same quality. Maybe it's determinant on who's receiving them. I mean, it's obviously determined on how it's being received, but maybe that's determined by, you know, who's actually receiving them, you know, because like who's actually receiving it. Because there's certain jokes that you can make where it's like, you can make that joke because you're the person that the joke is kind of talking about. Or you can make that joke to a specific type of person because that's who the joke is talking about, or because you're a specific type of person. But then other people, like, you know, it fits into these certain types of lines with that. Which is kind of like this space of understanding, this space of comfortability, that way of trust, kinship, where this one's almost like, this one is this idea of looking at every new experience, every new person, every new relationship with a sense of curiosity and like freedom, and everything's all bright and new life. Where this one is almost like talking about like cutting so many people off and like almost having this like becoming addicted to that hermit mode sort of idea. I'm still getting only contrast with these that way. I mean, I can find similarities, but like there's still a contrast that's coming. So I'm going to use these cards to kind of help balance that out by having this one relate to these two and this one relate to these two. That's why it's set up this way, apparently. Interestingly enough, both of these cards are blue. Both of these cards came out yellow. So that's cool. We have the Two of Wands and the Hierophant. Okay. So what I'm seeing in this layout now is that like these are kind of talking about our higher energies and our lower energies, or our higher mind and our lower mind. And then this is talking about like how we see ourselves, and this is talking about how we think others see us. I'm getting like this alchemy sense of being opportunistic here. Like you're opportunistic because you're very positive, essentially. Like you're always looking to try something and do something and make something, and you're positive that you can do those things. So this opportunistic, curious innocence. This is like a creativity, like talking about like some sort of like imagination, creativity, potentially some sort of delusion. But this one is more, I'm getting delusion out of this one, where this is like also like coping mechanisms, or the ability to cope, or the ability to support oneself. It's not innately negative. And then this one is almost like this idea of being able to use, having the power of true opposition, where it's like people can be afraid of this certain skill or quality or object because it kind of leaves them vulnerable. But then it's also like this capacity to like use those people because of that, or to like use that against these people, or some sort of sourness, some sort of bitterness. It's an interesting... That one I'm going to have to read into more. I don't know exactly what I'm getting out of that. Interesting. Okay. It's interesting because what I'm seeing with this one is this capacity to be able to be alone and to be satisfied by oneself because they're like self-entertained, or like satisfied with very little, where there's it in seeming opposition is this, it's like this ego, it's like this way of validating oneself by using others, or by what others are willing to offer in exchange for this knowledge or this skill or this capacity, this quality. But it's like almost like this like bitterness comes from requiring other people to validate that, as if it doesn't just validate itself, where this person's almost like these things are valid enough themselves, but because so many people are attracted to that and trying to give offerings for that and trying to make it something, like it's creating this bitterness. Where interestingly, like this one is lemons, this one is pickles, which pickles are known for being quite sour as well, but in a totally different way. You know, lemons are sweet and sour, pickles are salty and sour. And this person's quite contented with the pickles, or this person's very discontented with all of these lemons. And it's almost like this sense of overabundance, especially that like this is too sweet, where it's hard to process, and it becomes muddled. Like in this card, there's so many details going on, and there's so many different things going on really between all these different, you know, characters in the card. There's all these people down here, each doing their different thing, and this person's doing multiple things, and there's a lot of expression on their face, where this one is very basic, very simple. But their eye and these two pickles really stand out because of the color scheme and stuff. So it's almost like this what would be innately perceived as less like valuable based on social validation is more validating than this social validation itself. If that makes sense. I don't know exactly even what I just said. Okay. Hold on, let's see. I mean, there's definitely the same color scheme throughout all these, which is interesting. Because it's the same color scheme on the outside of the cards. Not all of these cards are like this. Some of these cards are like super pink and have all these different things. But all of this is like this blue, yellow, green. This blue, yellow, green, orange. I'm having a hard time getting like as deep as this really is. So sorry for that. Blue for water, blue for sky, blue for sky, blue for eyes.
Somebody wants the door open.
Yellow banana, yellow lemons, yellow walls, yellow cups, pentacles, wires, orange scuba tank, orange shadow, green pickles, green circuit board. The fact that both of these are pages. You know, the Two of Wands speaks of a union of like a balancing of certain qualities. You know, we're bringing the simplicity of all that I have is these two pickles in with the imagination aspect and in with this creativity aspect of I can make of these what I will, even just using my own shadow. That's all that I have, and I can still make something tangible of these. There's also this weird union in that sense where like the pickles themselves are tangible. The shadow person, the shadow in this shadow box is an illusion. We're brought up talking about an illusion, and it's like this illusion is the thing making these simple, tangible things valuable, where this is all more real. You know, this is all illusionary and just imaginary. Where this is all real, there's a whole bunch of people worshiping this person and offering this person all these things, but there's no contentment here. It's not valid. It doesn't feel It doesn't feel as validated or as valuable, even though this person has like these gorgeous hand-carved pillars and they're sitting on a throne and they have a beautiful headdress and they have these sophisticated tools and they have all these people worshiping him, and they're discontented. So, you know, it's an interesting thing because like it's giving me this idea where like in the Matrix series, in the movies, the initial Matrix movie, the first one, would lead you to kind of feel that like the Matrix is bad and that we're supposed to like being the chosen one and waking up from the Matrix is like the end goal. And essentially that's what so many people took from it, but really that's not even what it's talking about. And then by the time you get to the third movie, like it's trying to explain that like the Matrix is essential, that like the whole reason that the Matrix was created was because everything was being destroyed and was going to be destroyed. And so it was like kind of like this race against time to develop a technology sophisticated enough to allow us to continue living the lives that we valued, because that has all been lost in the future. And like Zion, like this, the place where, you know, we're all supposed to really live, and the like it's like supposed to be depicted of heaven, is this like dust bowl of a place where everybody's just living off of porridge and wearing sackcloth, and like there's this idea of like that's the value of the Matrix that way, is because it takes these simple tangibilities and makes them something simple to enjoy. That's what the illusion is supposed to do, but at the same time it has this effect of it's such a sophisticated system in order to be able, like, what's really going on is that people are barely able to survive in the real world. So it's like this sophisticated illusion, but that sophistication allows for this lack of appreciation. You know, and so that's what I'm seeing. This is like revealing that like what would normally be a curiosity where all things seem positive, like there's a fish coming out of this guy's cup, but because he's a scuba diver, like it's this idea that like, oh, this must be exactly what I was looking for. Like there's this sense of taking whatever comes your way and making the most of it, and that turning into this. Now it's cold and it's winter and this person's all like deranged, obviously out of their mind, as they've just like used all these different things, and maybe this can was like their best friend, and now they've got their best friend but they're dead and they're just strapped to him, and they're like, no, I'm still doing this thing, I'm still making the most, I'm gonna make the most of everything, when like you're experiencing a nuclear winter. Like you're still trying to make the most of everything, when like making the most of things isn't how you change things for the better. It's how you receive things for the better. And that's a huge part of like what the value of our lives is how we choose to receive things. But if we keep letting the world go to shit more and more and more and more, saying, well, we can't do anything about it, the best we have is just to make the most with what we have, we're letting the world go to shit. And in fact, supporting that as we just kind of become dissonant and divided in our own way of pleasing ourselves, right? Ultimately, that's not going to be the most sustainable option, to just let things continue the way that they are, and just to, be like, as long as everybody just figures out a way to be happy, be happy. I did that in my life. And I will say that, like, as far as my depression and anxiety is concerned, I needed to be able to learn that skill so that I wasn't so overburdened by the reality of existence, because I was so overburdened by the reality of existence that I had to be delusional. I had to cater to all of these shallow delusional concepts and validations for myself and for my reality in order to feel valid, in order to feel okay. And essentially I was just constantly coping. Moving out of that came from, like, not having to have those things to feel some type of way, not letting those things, like, determine what is real. And there's always this kind of back and forth, because that's also part of, like, what makes life worth living is all of these simple enjoyments. But at the same time, so easily can those simple things then become these things that we no longer appreciate. Now it's almost like become this burden in order to sophisticate ourselves to a certain point. And in the same sort of way, like, we can also digress to this certain point of lacking appreciation, and doing it all in the name of a certain thing. So, I learned, it's so interesting because I'm always learning, like, the way that things, like, both themselves were, like, it's never just one thing. It really isn't. And that's how it goes. As much as one thing can be one way, it can also be another way. It's kind of crazy. And so even in saying that, like, these have all now shown that, how they can be one way and then be another way. Now, let's see, because we're all bringing it to this. The Knight of Cups in transition. Okay. Got the Knight of Cups. So we've got this guy riding his motorcycle, drinking his cup, feeling some type of way. Okay. Sorry. Okay. The Page of Cups to the Knight of Cups. The Two of Wands to the Knight of Cups. The Hierophant to the Knight of Cups. The Page of Wands to the Knight of Cups. It's not entirely what I expected. It's an interesting card. Falls right in line with the blue. I mean, it has the color scheme, but now it has, instead of true orange, it's more of a red. It's taken on this different. Okay, so we've got driving from this curiosity into this point of insanity. And, like, this character in this card has this, like, sort of, like, arrogance about him. He has this sort of confidence about him. And it almost gives that idea of, like, drinking while driving, right? It's interesting because I'm seeing it like this, like, don't let this curiosity drive you to drink yourself to madness, or, like, don't let this curiosity, don't be so drunk with this curiosity that you drive yourself to madness. Which is fair. I don't know exactly what it is that we're talking about fully, but I know that I've done that in my life. So I would say that that's fair. Also, it's almost like the issue with the illusion is it getting drunk on this tangibility. And like, that's where it's become at this point where like this person is so discontented because they've become too drunk on this tangibility where like all of these things are at hand, and you know, even just to have anything tangible at all can be misleading. Because the right flood of emotions will lead things to become muddied. This is such an... I'm getting the weirdest energy. I don't know who this reading exactly is for, but I hope that this is helpful for whoever's hearing it. I'm hearing a whole bunch of random things. If a bunch of this has resonated with you, but random stuff doesn't, just let it go. Then it's not for you. I'm sure there's somebody that random things are resonating with. Maybe you've been wondering why you're sitting and watching this, and suddenly you hear that one thing that you needed to hear, and it's like, oh, okay, that was it. Sorry that I have an hour-long video just for you to hear the one thing, but I digress. Let me get... Hold on, I'm going to put these in here. I want to get an overall... I want to get an overall message for this. Let's get an overall message. Okay. An overall message for this reading, please. So I can tie all this together. Because right now it's being weird. An overall message. For this reading, please. An overall message. Let's try one more time. An overall message. Okay. Two cards fell out. Okay. And they fell face down, so I'm going to keep them like that. Okay. An overall message. Okay, wait, hold on. Mercury. A message. Messenger. The messenger for an overall message. The overall message, the messenger. The overall message is fire. It's the left hand. Passion. And the messenger, the Mount of Venus. Beautiful. Yes, the Mount of Venus. The feminine. The warrior feminine. At peace. The strong, independent feminine. It's like the not the warrior feminine, but it's the feminine that like has proven themselves rather, and is at peace within this space. Okay. I'm almost just hearing like there's a fear here that like a certain curiosity could lead one to madness, but that like the focus is like on maintaining one's passion, maintaining one's surety of self, maintaining one's curiosity, maintaining one's like willingness to see things positively, trust, and to understand that like this illusion is what's making this certain tangibility valid, and like the the arrogance of like taking advantage of this tangibility so much so that you can't appreciate it anymore is actually what's where this madness is coming from. It's not a bad thing to enjoy something that isn't real. It's a bad thing to make that non-real thing real by letting it get under your skin and be something more than it needs to be. Like, it's almost this idea where like I mean, this is like taking this one concept and then letting it just like get totally full blown out of control, where like that's not the point. The point is like to rest in the creativity aspect of what these things are serving, these ideas or these feelings or whatever this is that we're talking about. I mean, if this is resonating with you at all, then you know better than I do, because I don't know exactly what we're talking about right now. But yeah, there's this idea of like embracing that illusion. Because like it's not innately negative just because it's an illusion, and that's kind of what's consistently taught, or kind of how we would perceive the things. Like, oh, the Matrix is innately bad because it's the Matrix. It's not real, and the only thing that matters is what's real. And like, I'm the first person to say that. Like, I would much rather you be honest and genuine and real than lie to me or try to convince me of something or try to be complimentary and stuff like that. I'm very much about sustainability, but we're not necessarily talking about something that's impacting that. In fact, if it's impacting that, the sustainability is going to come from the genuineness that we can achieve, but by just embracing ourselves truly. And part of embracing ourselves truly is also embracing the aspects of ourselves that are given to fantasy or that are given to certain types of delusion, or they are given to it's not like given to your delusion, but it's like, it's okay to be creative. It's okay to be imaginative. It's okay to be childlike in those types of ways, to be free. It's not being childlike in this image, like in this image here, in the Mount of Venus. Like, it's like, this is a very mature energy. This is a very wise energy. This is a very peaceful energy. This is an energy that has proven itself over time, that it can just enjoy the simpler things, the finer things, the funner things. The passion, the opportunities. Like, it's not coming from being ignorant, even if it's coming from being somewhat innocent. It's not coming from being delusional or being like unconcerned about the right things or over concerned with the wrong things. It's not coming from a derangement. The derangement is a lack of appreciation for what these things just naturally are and stand for. To let these things become where like, oh, now I need to be like, and have your fantasies, enjoy yourself, but don't do it just so that other people see you being away and are like, yeah, now I know you to be that type of person. Because like, this second that this person as the Hierophant gained all of this affection from all of these other people for this thing, they started lacking appreciation for what this thing really was. And suddenly it became a burden instead of a blessing. We're like, this is like a shadow coming upon two pickles in a box and being like, oh my God, I'm great. This is great. Now I have everything. You know, so there's this idea of like not taking yourself too seriously in order to be able to be, you know, as genuine as you truly are. There's an aspect of all of us that kind of, you know, and it's kind of reflecting on that like maturity isn't a matter of like, it can be a matter of discipline, but like discipline in tow with maturity aren't reflected by stoicism innately. They're not, it's not, you have to be quiet, you have to be demure, you have to be, you know, super sophisticated in a limited sort of way. Like, yeah, it's not about limiting. It's not discipline in a limiting sort of sense. It's like the kind of discipline that comes with, you want to be able to carry that thing or walk that distance. Like, then there's a certain discipline that comes with that so that there's a reward to it. It's not a punishment. It's this thing that allows for a sort of freedom. There's a wisdom that comes with experience that, you know, allows a person just to be able to be like, you know what, I can just take it easy. I can treat myself well. I can enjoy myself. I can be creative. I can do these different types of things because I'm capable of doing that. I've done all of these different things and I'm capable in these ways. It's not letting your position kind of take a toll or like take priority, really. The position is innate. The position comes because you have these tools, you have these skills, you have this capacity, and it does draw people to you. But in order to maintain this sense of appreciation, you have to really focus on this being, focus on the basics, focus on the very simple things that you can easily maneuver in order to be whatever you want. It's so interesting because like the Hierophant card speaks of a really strong intuition, a really strong spiritual aspect, a strong intellectualism even though it's a more spiritual card. But like it can speak of a sophistication. And if you notice that like the tools that they generally tend to have, the status that they have, like conveys a sophistication, where this card does not convey a sophistication. It's fucking pickles, right? It's like it's like a lack of sophistication. But in that way, the simplicity of these pickles allows for so much more creativity than this entire structured situation. This person is not free. This person has no freedom to move. This person is completely tied to standards, laws, and systems already pre-written and pre-established. And that within that is part of the frustration where here this person has nothing but two pickles, and in that is the abundance of the universe. In that is the abundance of all of their creativity and their appreciation of selves and their appreciation for all things. Because if you can appreciate two pickles, you can appreciate the rest of the things that have been given to you. You know, you have this entire world before you. It looks like this, but what it really is this, you know. And so in that same idea, it's kind of like that this weird play back and forth that's been coming up a lot. It's you know, in the same exact way. It's so strange, but like if you consider like that synthesis, the word synthesis, although it means for two or more things to become essentially one thing, or to work cohesively as one thing, or to work one way, in a uniformed sort of direction. The word synthesis itself is also innately defining or inferring multiple things. Like it requires multiple things to come together to become one. It's talking about the coming together of one, but that's also denoting that like there is an innate division. So part of what's happening in this timeline that I'm seeing is that that's coming to a head where like the definitive quality of this means this and this means this is like, okay, really, that's not the case, because these things, it's really dependent on a person's personal perspective of that thing. Because at any point in time, that very thing could also mean something completely different. That very thing could also mean the exact opposite thing, where this thing could also mean that exact opposite thing. So like, there's this idea of these things merging and interlacing, but in that way, it's like, it's not that they're becoming one thing. It's almost like when you mix black and white together, it doesn't absorb black and white into each other and then they become completely neutralized. It makes gray. It makes like this whole other thing. But it's almost like the opposite of that, because it is almost like these things are becoming neutralized. Where in the same way, it's like where it becomes far more evident that like it really depends on where you're standing and how you're choosing to look at a thing, what it really is to you or not. There isn't a single thing under the sun at this point that can't be made good of, but it's within the capacity only of those that choose to do good, to make those things. Just as easily, somebody could take all of these positive things and turn them into these negative things and just keep them this way. And so it's kind of this reflection of, as well as, don't, you know, Like, be aware of yourself so that you're not putting yourself in this position of becoming this type of thing that you don't want to be. You know, keep it simple. Go back to the basics. Be willing to appreciate just like the random things that show up. This is like talking about like taking time to smell the roses sort of deal. Let this fire burn. Let this fire burn. That's another part that I'm getting. It's like, you don't need such high boundaries, restrictions, standards. There's this idea of like certain things need to be done away with. Certain things are, you know, are being purified through fire, this sort of way. This idea of just like letting certain bridges burn, letting certain things kind of pass away, seeing what's left afterwards, because those are the things of value. And letting that speak for itself that way too, you know. All right. Well, this was weird. This was weird, but good. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully it's, you know, whoever comes across this, it was the message for you. If you continue to watch it this whole time, hopefully you receive something good from it. Yeah, I just wanted to spend a little time doing this, so I'm keeping up on my shit. I have obviously gotten a little, I'm on island time, right? Obviously in island world where I'm just, you know, I'm not dressed up. I'm not, you know, I don't got makeup on. I'm not like staying on top of these things as consistently. I'm doing it weird. Just kind of moving things around and trying to figure out exactly how to settle into things. So I appreciate you being flexible about that. Obviously this is not like a great aesthetic. I know that this isn't the best video to watch, I'm sure. Hopefully it was sufficient to listen to, and I'll get significantly better. I know I went from like, I was getting better and then completely went downhill, but I'm fine with y'all seeing this process that way. So that's where I'm at. I will see you again in the next video you happen upon. All right, have a good one.